Okay, welcome back, guys. We're at chapter 7. There's something you should know about Leroy. Chapter 7. Please do not speak to the model. Address me, said Mr. Willis. He was speaking to the new art students, who was pestering Prudence with questions and suggestions. Mr. Willis felt duty-bound to protect the dignity of his models. After all, he had recruited most of them, had slept with some of them, and had the rest on his to-do list. He would not tolerate impropriety from his students, even if he condoned it in himself. That was a teacher's prerogative. His role was as moderator in this intricate and sensuous debate between model and artist, a debate which raged in silence. Or rather, his job was to keep it, for the most part, silent. Look, but don't touch. Ask the teacher, not the model. A very simple rule. Please follow it. Mr. Willis had taught at the Performing and Visual Expressions College for over a decade. He knew all too well the job of the artist model was a fleeting one, usually a stint to bridge some gap or other. They were mainly women, mainly young, mainly working class or below. They were at that stage in their emotional and intellectual, perhaps even political development, when they yearned for the ultimate expression of liberation and empowerment. Nudity somehow seemed to be the answer. They reasoned, what better way to prove that you had your mind together than to spread your legs apart, so long as you do so willingly and professionally, and dare someone to look but not touch. Correction. They mostly kept their legs together. It was he who always imagined they were apart. They kept their legs together. The point being, he always wondered. It was like wearing a very short skirt that you were constantly trying to tug down. The point being, usually within a year or two, the urge for liberal expression had burnt itself out. The whole thing had lost its appeal. Someone's mother or younger sister or boyfriend had discovered the whole affair. Or they had matured into a newer understanding of reality that stipulated a bit more modesty. Someone had joined the church, or gotten pregnant, or gotten married, or some other thing. They weighed the experience and decided they hadn't really gained from it, may in fact have lost something in the process. At least, that is how it seemed to him, because, as said, they were mostly no longer engaged in posing nude after about 2 years. He was not one to argue with empirical evidence, and he did say mostly. Nor did he question the ethics or sagacity of someone, anyone, male or female, though they were overwhelmingly female, stripping down to their bare essentials and exposing themselves, their souls, leaving themselves vulnerable to the whims of a dozen artists. To him, the studio was a different realm, and the laws that applied elsewhere did not apply here. The models played a different role in the scheme of things, and were no more human than the sofa on which they lay, the objects arranged on the table for contrast and distraction, the lights cast from the side to accentuate the shadows. Once they entered the studio and sealed all orifices from prying intrusion, the only human element was the artist, and he was the least consequential. His role was to translate and depict, a humble scribe scribbling as the form dictated. The form was sovereign, the artist secondary. Of course, some things were lost in translation. The artist being, after all, human, he only asked that they try to do justice to the form. His role as teacher was to facilitate. He answered questions. He listened to suggestions. He ensured there were adequate breaks during the longer sessions, where the models could put on their robes, and regain their humanness for a while, sip some juice or soda since they were mainly young, and had not yet cultivated a fear of dying, perhaps refresh or relieve themselves in the bathroom. He promised no one, neither artist nor model, neither fame nor fortune. That was not in his hands. Luckily, most of them realized the futility of seeking either and were content to paint. Recognition, maybe, and the pride that came with having your work displayed in one of the more prestigious galleries, maybe be a part of the biennial at the National Gallery or part of a roving international exhibition. All these were possibilities. A few would break away from the pack and gain national or international esteem. Always a bonus. Their work could command a hefty price and have red tags stapled to them en masse. The chosen few. It was a damn lucky thing that most artists seem to have innate in them humility of character and modest expectations, or disillusionment would kill them. While Willis himself was a master painter, he also dabbled in some sculpting, but painting was his baby. He had exhibited extensively in his youth and had taken a more laid-back approach lately, painting mainly on weekends and holidays. He focused now on his students. He was not one of those teachers who thought disparagingly towards the self-taught artists, the intuitives, who rejected formal training and opted to chart their paths unaided, groping. Some teachers regarded this set with great condescension and resentment, perhaps a bit of jealousy thrown in, the kind that one often feels towards the rebel who had the gumption to do what they dared not. But Willis felt neither condescension nor resentment. He embraced all with equal fervor, the conformist and the rebel. Even as he instructed and guided his students, he encouraged initiative and independence. This also extended to the models. Willis had been obsessed with Prudence for years. He knew she was a student in the music department. He knew she was joined at the hip to her guitar. He knew she was close friends with Leroy and Wayne, who were students of his. He knew nothing else about her. He requisitioned her far more than he did the other models. Perhaps he saw her as something yet to be conquered. Confession was good for the soul. Willis usually avoided the question as posed by others, and even dodged the issue when it rose in his own mind, the fact that he had screwed most of the models with whom he had come in contact. He convinced himself, as he tried to do with others, that these had all been consensual, of mutual benefit, and entirely legal. Double standards? Perhaps. And who doesn't have them? There were boundaries as a teacher, but he was not only or always a teacher. It was a role he could take off, just as a model transcended her human form when she took off her robe. He had other facets, each with equal rights to expression. He stopped being a teacher and resumed being a man, often just at the same time where the model stopped being a goddess and resumed being a voluptuous young girl with curves that challenged the seams of her clothes, eyes that flashed with exuberance, and lips that promised adventure. It was very convenient, even serendipitous, that these transformations occurred at the same time and left them with opportunities to explore and time on their hands. So he would slip them a note or send them a message. Mostly, the results were in his favor. He wasn't at all bad looking. He was not a particularly stingy man. He carried himself well, and of course, there was that prestige that went with knowing that you were being fucked by a senior lecturer in the art department. Most girls, at least, seemed to find this prestigious. Not so with Prudence. He had slipped notes into her hand, sent countless messages with people whom he knew came into close contact with her. He was extra vigilant during the sessions when she posed, and he warded off any interjections from any artist who tried to be a nuisance to her in any way. He made sure there was juice left out for her during her 15-minute intercessions. Juice, not soda. He tended to her needs and made sure she wanted for nothing. He did all this to no avail. Willis suspected that Prudence's heart belonged to someone else. He wasn't sure who. Her friendship with Wayne and Leroy seemed platonic, at least on the surface. They romped, teased, and tormented each other like rambunctious siblings in the back seat of a car. If anyone loved the other, they kept it under wraps. In any case, there were rumors being circulated about Leroy. If those rumors were true, Prudence stood hardly any chance with him. Willis refused to relinquish his hold on her, the hold he wished he had on her. He had aimed his sniper and he intended to follow through with precision, no matter how long it took. The fact that she resisted only intensified his resolve. I pose nude, I am never naked, Prudence always said. So to those who wanted her to explain, who challenged her to validate her choice of eking out a living. Surely there were more honorable ways to help your mother put you through music school, they derided. Aren't you afraid of people seeing your what should be most private parts? Do they ever try to fondle you? Do you ever want them to? Aren't you concerned that you may smell offensive? She considered their questions with equal derision in her own mind. If these people had only been present at one session, they would know how irrelevant and ludicrous these questions seemed to her. Each artist was so conscientious, so involved and immersed in his or her rendition. Prudence the woman did not exist. Only Prudence the dream to be captured before it dissipated. Prudence the fleeting perfect moment to be seized before it faded. She was not a body that had thoughts, talked, heard, or for that matter, smelled. There was nothing lewd or depraved going on here. There was a language being translated by the lucky few scribes entrusted with its transmission. Carnality might break the code. For today's session, she was kneeling on the carpet, her nude back turned to the batch of artists, her head slightly turned to the side, her arms out and touching the carpet as if to brace her up. Eyes followed the contours of her body, the nape of her slender neck, the long crevice of her spine, the sink line and bulge of her buttocks, particularly as they spread themselves with her kneeling. Her breasts, you could not see them now, but you knew they were there. Very well executed, a goddess. Prudence had lost count of how many times she had posed like this. It was one of her favorite positions because there was no direct eye contact between herself and the artist. The best portraits, she always thought, were those in which the subject was unaware of being captured, or at least pretended to be. Prudence, I'll walk you to the music department, said Willis. That's where you're headed, right? Sure, she replied absently. Don't be so lackluster. I'm offering you my personal protection across the campus, he said with chivalry. I hear they've been planning to capture you and take you off to another kingdom. She smiled. He congratulated himself. She knew the campus inside out and certainly didn't need an escort. She did not particularly like Mr. Willis. She was not an artist, but by being present in the studio for so many years, she could gauge that his teaching skills were above average at least. Both students and faculty held him in high esteem. What Prudence was not comfortable with was how he always came on to her, in subtle but undeniable ways, in spite of her constant deference. His persistence was annoying, to say the least. She tried to be diplomatic, but he seemed either unable to take the hint or too arrogant to accept the hint. In any case, Prudence had no wish to be added to the little black book in which, legend had it, he recorded the names of all his exploits, many of whom were models like herself, and a few of whom were even said to be faculty. These models labored against the stereotype of being loose and easy, immoral and promiscuous. Prudence knew herself to be none of the above. She refused to be poured into the mold that others had set for her. She insisted on going against the grain of their expectations. I hear you guys are arranging a concert for next Saturday night. Will you be doing your solo act as usual? You're a natural with that guitar, I might add. He may not be able to get in, but at least he knew where the door was. She gave him that much. Thanks, my guitar is my best friend. Prudence strummed a few chords and smiled, as if only just remembering the guitar that was strung across her chest. She had grown so accustomed to it being there that sometimes she forgot it even was there, and she only remembered when she tried to do normal everyday things that were impossible to do with a guitar strapped to you. I thought Leroy was your best friend, Willis chuckled. There was a brief uncomfortable pause. Anyway, I'll certainly be at the concert. Maybe afterwards we could go for a drink. I don't really drink. She imagined Willis slipping something into her cocktail while she used the restroom. He seemed the type that you were warned never to leave your drink unattended with. Ah, come on. Okay, we'll order orange juice. He feigned a laugh. I really just want to get to know you better. It doesn't matter what we drink. Water would be fine, long as I'm sipping it with you. I don't know. I don't go out much. I'd probably bore you to death. You keep putting me off. Are you taken? I haven't heard about you dating anyone. She turned sharply to face him, not so much shocked that he was the type to stoop to gossip, but that he would so casually admit to it. What? I ask questions, he said in defense, seeing her change in composure. Look, you know I've been trying to get through to you forever. I ask about you every chance I get. Our campus isn't all that big, you know. Word would get around. You're assuming I would only be dating someone on campus. Come on, give a guy a break. What else am I to do but to snoop around? You won't let me come near you otherwise. They were approaching the end of the corridor that separated the art department from the music department, and were about to descend a winding flight of wooden stairs that made even the bravest souls apprehensive. He seized the opportunity to grasp her hand and led her down the staircase. These steps are wretched, said Willis mockingly. We have nothing like these over at Fine Arts. You music people have lived dangerous lives. It was a running joke. They were always poking fun at each other. Art, music, dance, drama. Each group promoted itself as being superior to the others, knew itself to be inferior to the others, but defended its own honor to the death, and rightly so. They were at the landing with only a few paces left before they parted. Listen, he whispered, gently guiding her over to the side of the pavement. Is it true what they say about your friend Leroy? What do they say about him? Prudence had heard the rumors. She knew what he was getting at. Is it true what they say, that he has gone the other way? Gone the other way? Come now, Prudence, stop playing. Is he gay or not? He seems pretty straight to me. But then again, he probably has it under wraps. But you wouldn't know the signs to look for, would you? And if he's at top, it's really hard to tell. The bottom's not so hard. Willis chuckled. Anyways, are you in love with him? Prudence looked away momentarily. Then she faced him squarely. Mr. Willis, people aren't always what they seem. Don't judge a book by its cover. As a matter of fact, don't judge, period. She was becoming upset. Mr. Willis, I'm glad I caught you. I was just coming over to the art department to hunt you down, said a well-dressed lady. waltzing down the corridor in 4-inch heels that matched her beige business suit. She sauntered gracefully up towards them, though her voice indicated urgency. Mrs. Blade, yes, I almost forgot. I'll have those files ready for you by Monday, I promise. He spoke with the timid tremor of a schoolboy caught without his homework on the first day of school after a very long holiday. You told me that last week, scolded Mrs. Blake. We need all the information on the students so we can update their portfolios before the final year exhibition. You teachers have to try harder to meet our deadlines. I know you guys have your hands full, but so do we.